Hey everyone, today we're going to follow a developer's step-by-step journey to build a web server in Go. We'll get to see how a project goes from just a simple idea all the way to a structured, clean, and maintainable app. All right, let's dive in.
So here's the big question, right? It's the one we all face. It's not just about getting something to run. It's about building it the right way from the very beginning so it doesn't turn into a total mess down the road.
And the way we're going to tackle that question is by following a super practical, real-world example. We'll see the code, the thought process, the actual commits. We're going to trace the entire path from using Go's built-in tools to eventually upgrading to a really powerful framework.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the blueprint, the architecture. Then we'll set up the project foundation. After that, we'll build the first draft using the standard library. Then we'll make it more robust with testing and a proper shutdown. From there, we'll refactor it using Gin. And finally, we'll wrap up with the big takeaways. It's a pretty logical journey.
First things first, you need a blueprint. Before a single line of code gets written, our developer is already thinking about the structure. This is all about planning for the future, making sure the project is going to be easy to work with later on.
And the goal here is actually pretty simple. It's a 3-layer architecture. You've got your router to handle all the incoming requests, the controllers to hold the business logic, and a database layer for the data. Now, even though the first version won't have all these pieces, having this blueprint from day one guides every single decision.
Okay, with the plan in place, it's time to lay the foundation. This is the stuff you got to do for pretty much any software project to get the whole environment ready for code.
And the process is really straightforward. First, you run go mod init. That just creates the Go module, which is how Go manages all its dependencies. Then, git init. That turns the folder into a Git repository so you can track all your changes. And finally, you push the code up to a remote repo like GitHub to share it. Simple as that.
And there it is, the 2 magic words. First, commit. Every single one of us knows this moment. This isn't just about saving a file, right? It's like planting a flag. It's the very first entry in the project's history, and it means this thing is officially real.
Okay, let's see how that blueprint actually turns into a working server. For this first version, the developer is sticking with Go's own built-in net/HTTP package. And notice, we're not pulling in any fancy frameworks yet. This is all pure native Go.
And check out how simple the core of this app is. It's just a single application struct. Right now, it only holds one thing, the server port. This is just smart planning, putting your configuration in one central place right from the very beginning.
Now this is where the magic happens. There's a method called startServer attached to that struct. It sets up the router, defines the handlers, and fires up the server. And it uses something called a Go routine to launch it in the background. This is a really key feature in Go. So let's take a closer look at what that actually is.
So what is a Go routine? Well, think of it as a super efficient, super lightweight task that can run at the same time as other tasks. By running the server in a Go routine, the main program isn't blocked. It's free to do other things, like, for example, listen for a shutdown signal.
Okay, so we've got a server. It runs. Awesome. But is it a good server? Is it robust? Is it professional? This is where we go from, hey, it works on my machine, to building something you could actually trust in production.
And that comes down to 2 really critical features. First, a graceful shutdown. The server now listens for system interrupt signals, which lets it finish up any current request and clean up properly before it exits. Second, a unit test. You gotta have tests. This one automatically checks that the Hello World endpoint is actually doing what we expect it to do.
And here's the commit that captures that huge milestone. See that feat at the beginning? That stands for feature, and it's a convention that clearly tells anyone looking at the project's history that a significant new piece of functionality just landed.
All right, so our server is pretty solid now. It's tested, it shuts down nicely, but what happens when things get more complicated? What if we need better routing or middleware for logging? This is when you start to think, maybe it's time for a framework.
So I make the switch. I mean, why bring in a framework like Gin? Well, because while the standard library is amazing, at some point you start reinventing the wheel. Frameworks like Gin give you battle-tested solutions for all the common stuff. Complex routing, middleware,
Error recovery, right out of the box. They handle the boilerplate so you can focus on building your app's features.
And you can see the whole philosophy shift right here in the code. With the standard library, your handler function is juggling a response writer and a request. But with Gin, you just get one powerful context object. That one object has everything you need, reading parameters, writing JSON, you name it. It's just cleaner.
And just like that, the upgrade to the new framework is done, marked with another clear, concise commit message. The project now has a Gin router at its core, and it's ready for much more complex features to be built on top.
So after watching this entire build process, from an empty folder all the way to a framework-powered server, what are the key takeaways? What can we learn from this whole journey? You know, the real takeaway here is that good software development is all about making deliberate choices. We saw how starting with a clean architectural plan pays off down the line. We learned that the standard library is an amazing starting point, but the true robustness comes from adding things like tests and graceful shutdown. The move to a framework like Gin wasn't just for fun. It was a strategic solution to growing complexity. And through it all, sharing the work on Git forced clarity and documentation. Each step was just a logical evolution.
And that brings us to the final, critical question we should all ask ourselves. This journey from the standard library to a framework isn't just a technical exercise, it's a strategic one. So the real question is, where is that tipping point for your project? When does the elegance of simple stop being enough and the power of a framework become a necessity? There's no single right answer, and that's what makes it so interesting. Thanks for watching.